Hey, it's midday in Portugal. We're here, Carl Munson and Louisa Munson, with The Moment. After yesterday's excitement, we're back with what could be described as the difficult second album. after the high of yesterday, here we are.
I was absolutely overflowing with excitement and enthusiasm, and you know what it's like when you've been sort of slightly tense and getting like gearing up for something. Afterwards, I felt myself collapse a little bit into myself. Like I needed to have a bit of a break and just kind of rest up a little bit. So I'm slightly more mellow today. How are you? How are you in your body
Very
right now?
similar. In the run-up to yesterday's show, there was 3 hours of sleep the night before.
That's a bit bonkers.
Yes, I managed to get a decent night's sleep last night, and it's a kind of damp and dark and still day here. It's somewhat sort of wintry.
It is, yeah.
and still and quiet here, isn't it? A mellow and quiet day here in Portugal. So let's see who's watching, who wants to say hello. Please check in as well. How are you doing today? Do let us know in the chat, if you will. As it says, just join us in the chat room or in the chat box just below in the comments there. And get in touch as well via the website on newrealitytv.com. Right, we are in our first season of establishing the context, really, right? The new reality. Welcome to our new reality and how we're perceiving it here on The Moment. Live most days at midday here in the Portugal time zone, the Lisbon and GMT. Incidentally, we won't be live tomorrow. There'll be a recorded show in case you're trying to interact with us tomorrow.
That won't work.
Show. It won't work very well. But please, we'd love to see your messages. And we have had some responses, and we'll come back to some of those as well from yesterday's show. So love, always wonderful to hear from you. That's what it's all about. This show is interactivity and people getting involved, the community getting involved. Talking of which, hi to you both from Hugh and Jane. Hi, Hugh and Jane.
Hi, Jane.
How are you doing? You're in Viseu or near to Viseu in the district of Viseu and near the town of Viseu, city of Viseu in Portugal. Good to see you both. Eva is here from Sweden.
Hi, Eva. How are you?
How awesome. Eva, good to see you
nice
as well.
Nice to make it.
Deb, well, good morning.
Hello.
From Massachusetts in the USA. Good morning to you, Deb. Or just into the afternoon, actually, here in Portugal. We don't say good afternoon in Portugal until we've had our lunch.
So is that true? I haven't even had breakfast yet.
I don't know. That makes it a bon nuit for you. Then good night.
Evening.
Yeah, right. And too cold to prune the vines, so making lots of kiwi jam. Oh, that's a lovely insight into your life. The kitchen table, I think, over in that part of Portugal. So good to see you. Yes, and I broke my flow of describing what today's show is about to say hi to you. It's very important for us to say hi to you first.
Absolutely.
7 a.m. for Deb in Massachusetts. Thank you for getting up and for tuning in to us that early in the morning for you as well. So yes, the context. Welcome to our new reality. And today, episode 2, what are the signs that there is a new reality emerging in front of our very eyes? Mrs. M, what were you thinking when you penned this?
Well, I was thinking, when we've got the idea of like, welcome to the new reality, that's seeded on the premise that we all agree we are all in a new reality. And I'm guessing most people that find us are already in a new reality. They're sort of creating it with us, right now as we speak. But I always think it's quite helpful to sort of understand our route in, to understand what led us to realizing that maybe things aren't quite as normal as we seem, and also that
we're not as normal as we seem.
Definitely not. But also that the weirdness of this is that when life isn't as normal as we've been led to believe, or as we've been raised, with our very sort of kind of rational kind of world that we live in. But the funny thing is, when we start to develop these magical abilities or these senses that there's something unusual within us, that's when we normalize it. So I actually do think, even though we might seem quite weird to lots of people, we're actually really normalizing. We actually feel really normal. So I actually think it's more normal to be in the more sort of like human flow of things, which maybe does include having an ability to sense signs and having this like sense of innate knowing that maybe something is going on, something cosmic. So yeah, that's where that title came
so
from.
a couple of things there then that people might be noticing more. Their clairvoyance, their clairsentience, and the gifts, as I think you've just described them. Do you think that there's more of that than that these gifts are becoming more apparent to people?
Yeah, I think I think we're living in a wonderful age, and I know we stopped, like we kind of alluded to this yesterday in our show with Will and Karen. We're in this fantastic time where we've got so many different tools and ways of connecting with different people. So, for instance, years and years ago, we were just connecting to the other way showers or slightly weirdo. That was the word I was looking for, actually. So, like when I was growing up, I would be friends with the people that maybe didn't have all the friends. I was always on the outside of things, looking in and realizing, this doesn't quite add up. Like, is it me? Or is it both, actually, which I think it is. But, like on the outside looking in, I almost felt like I was observing life, but not necessarily participating in it, because it didn't always make sense. I always felt like I was, I don't know. I couldn't quite understand it, but there was this sense of something being slightly different. And so, growing up in 70s UK, I
spare a thought.
Those cold, dark times. I noticed I was always meeting the other sort of maybe people that we'd labeled as misfits,
square pegs,
kind of not of this world, not really here, kind of people, or introverts. So that was how it happened. And of course, if there's only like 2 or 3 of you in your class or in your community, you don't really grow that much. But now we can actually find people. I think years ago when I first met you, you were telling me that you'd written an article about indigo men.
Yeah.
Almost like setting up a support group. Was that what it was?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, all these like people came from a distance, like all these people were messaging you. Now we've got the ability to connect with like-minded souls. And of course, as we come together, I think there is this upswell of energy. That's just my thoughts, though.
It was gonna be a book called "What Now, Indigo Man."
Seriously,
because the indigo phenomenon is really to do with children, isn't it? Indigo children. And I wrote something, and I can't remember which network it was now. It was for a website. Yeah. And actually, this is a sign that things have changed. It was on an obscure website. And I think probably the idea of indigo children has been in women's magazines. It's become more, it's not mainstream, but it's become, it's ventured from time to time into the mainstream, I think, hasn't it, as an idea. And I wrote this thing, what now, Indigo Man, for the boy children, the indigo kids, the male ones who grew up into indigo men.
Yeah.
What happened to them? And typically, I got one email, I think, from most of them saying, I'm interested in your project, in your book. It never got written. And I never heard from them again. And maybe that's typical indigo behavior. But that is a very good example. It was an obscure reference, if you like, about a somewhat obscure idea at the time on a somewhat obscure website. Run by does anyone know the name of the website? I think it might have been something like Transformation, with a 4 in it, and it was Peter Shepherd who ran it, who was running an incredible resource in the probably early 2000s. And that's the sign I'm talking about, is when you had to go to a slightly weird website to talk about these things and the law of attraction before The Secret. Before which was
I think that transformed things, didn't it?
Yeah, okay.
But go on, carry on.
That's going to be another program, isn't it? The things, the books mainly probably, and maybe the videos that changed your life and are causing and birthing the new reality. But okay, so that's one pretty strong sign, isn't it? That the idea that we're talking about it openly on a brand new TV website, aren't we? New Reality TV is available to everyone. It's not really esoteric, underground. It's right there in your face on the web for anyone who wants to listen now,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I need to share something with you, actually. I don't think I've ever shared this story with you.
Oh,
On the subject of indigos, obviously, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one listening to this today whose parents have thought they were a bit weird, right?
Yeah.
So when I was a young teen, my mum once, she came up to me and she said, I know what it is. I found out what's wrong with you. And I was like a bit sort of taken
did
back.
she use that word?
I think she did.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think she meant it like to hurt
Didn't
me.
mean it badly.
No. I think she was. Well, I think possibly, with a bit of coaching from, like, with the
How to speak to your indigo child book. Yes. Okay.
But she said something like to the effect of, I think I know what's wrong with you, and why you don't fit in and this, that, and the other. And it's because you're an indigo child. And she like listed off a whole list of qualities and said, there you go. Kind of like sort of made that announcement. See,
there you go.
And there was the proof.
Right.
And actually, and I don't think it's any fault of her own. She was going with the sort of the technology that she had at the time.
A book.
Or like, maybe a book, or maybe like just from talking to the other mums, outside schools and things. But the sense was that anyone that was slightly different and had other interests, and also asked those impossibly difficult questions about faith, life, and what's it all about, I think that, they were labeled as different, or something like there's something wrong with them. So, in terms of this show, like what signs are there of a new reality? The first one is we're not all weird anymore. We're no longer the weirdos.
Well, there's probably a group of indigo kids somewhere who might have grown up a bit, who are thinking that the crystal kid with them is the weirdo, because the indigos are the new normal, aren't they? Now? Yes. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe that's what we're talking about here. Love that, Deb. We've got proud weirdo and not normal. That's a great.
That's fantastic.
Comment.
I mean, that could be our tagline, couldn't it?
Yeah, and
we're all weirdos.
Thanks, Deb. Even at 7 a.m, a proud weirdo. And rational doesn't exist anymore. That's an interesting thing that I think we should pick up and discuss. So are we moving out of the rational, the age of reason? Is that what you think Stacey Hafter means there? Yeah,
I do. And funnily enough, Stacey, I'm about to record something for my astrology channel about the North Node going into Pisces. Ooh. Which when I was thinking about it, like trying to distill it into one sentence, it is like letting go of the rational mind, and rational doesn't exist anymore. That's absolutely perfect. I think I'm going to use what you've said, because like we're coming into a time when the dreamlike state becomes more real, or when we realize that, rationality might have helped us get so far, but when it's your only tool in the box, it's not going to take you the next step. The next step is going to need the imagination, the trust. I think that's what's coming back, is we're needing to actually trust in our innate knowing, in our innate skills, and we're going to need to tune in. And for people who find that really troubling, I think it's going to be quite difficult.
Yes, people like Douglas, and I'm not singling. I'm not singling Douglas out for.
Hey, Doug.
I'm not bullying Douglas by his own admission.
No, I mean he's joined us today, and he finds it difficult. What's he saying?
Well,
I've got my glasses.
Comments from yesterday. Watch the podcast. I just can't do this mindfulness stuff. Assuming that this is mindfulness stuff, which I'm not sure about that.
I think it's just us having a laugh and a conversation with friends.
It's not in me to do it. Our friend Chris responded, if only, or I only did the mindfulness in 2016 with the rest of the nation. I'm not sure what that means either. They're quite esoteric in their own way, aren't they, Chris and Douglas here? Yeah. And Doug also saying, I said to him, is that a cry for help? You can't do this mindfulness stuff. He said, well, sort of. I'm kind of envious of those who are able to switch off and be in the moment. I just can't do the switching off bit. So if we do take that as a cry for help, and we have people here who I think are very capable of supporting you if you wish, Doug, in the community, in the chat. However, I'm not sure it's about switching off. It might be the opposite. We might be switching on.
Yeah,
it's turning on. It's tuning in and turning on, isn't it?
Yeah, and then amplifying.
Yeah, right. So stay with us, Doug. Step. Stay with us, Doug. Considered weird by your parents, however, was too straight-laced. I guess, to come to the attention. Oh, hold on a minute. Were you weird or were you straight-laced? I'm confused now, Doug, even more confused than I was before. And weirdos are all the most interesting people, proud of the badge. Now, might we expect then that the weirdos are also the new normal? Are we going to have to get weirder in the new reality? Is that what's being said here?
I don't know, but I have some real empathy for Doug, because I know what it's like, especially if you're a bit of a people pleaser. I haven't actually met you in person.
He's not a people pleaser.
But underneath, I think underneath all of the masks that we wear, because we all wear masks, underneath it all, there is a little child who has sort of discovered a strategy for getting through life. And, for lots of people, it was conformity. So there was this sort of like mask of people pleasing, which I definitely did, though I'm guessing my mum probably didn't think I wasn't people pleasing enough. But, I know outside of the home, I was quite a people pleaser. And these are masks, and they'll get you so far in life, because you're following the sort of conventions, the rules of how humans are meant to be, etc., etc. But it wasn't really until I tuned in to myself and really heard what was going on inside me, which was, there was a part of me kind of screaming and saying, there must be more, there must be more to life than, what I'm currently doing and the sort of bandwidth that I'm living in. And it's not until you really hear that side of yourself kind of screaming out, or that little strangled version of yourself that you can barely hear because you daren't sort of consider that you might be sort of different. Like there might be an even more magnificent you somewhere. I don't know. I think there are more people recognizing that the persona that they've built for themselves is now feeling a little bit tight, a little bit constrictive. And I think that's your first sign, or one of your first signs, is that, in those quiet moments, if we ever have any quiet moments, there's this little voice in your ear. And I don't know whose voice it is, but for me, I could always hear myself like just really almost inaudible, but there was something saying, no more, no.
Oh, really? Until you had to burst out of your
and actually I realized I lived with that voice for years. I was in a relationship, and bless him, I don't suppose he's ever going to watch this show, but really lovely guy, but I knew my voice was telling me for years that we weren't in the right relationship. It wasn't the right fit. And we stay in our relationships, in our jobs, doing the things that we do, and we're ignoring what the maybe the better side of ourselves, the higher self, maybe. Who knows where that voice is coming from? But I do think we have the opportunity to know.
Are they two more signs of a new reality then? The voice within getting louder, is that a sign?
I think so.
Yeah. And then breaking out of the skin, is that another sign? People are just saying, having heard the voice, no more. And as Tony's saying here, then you shed that skin. More signs.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I was like doing a little brainstorm, kind of messy. I don't suppose you can see it really. It's hugely sort of spidery.
Part note, part mind map.
Yes. And actually hearing your inner voice wasn't what, I was writing down. Actually, this looks like quite a rational list. But it's only when we're chatting and then we've got comments coming in from other people that you kind of really draw down to the to the core of it.
It's being brought to life by the conversation. Yeah.
So what about you? I mean, how have you known?
I'm going to have I'm going to come back to that after we've said hello to a few more.
There's quite a few people joining us, aren't there?
Absolutely wonderful. This is
really
fabulous.
lovely.
This is fabulous to be on show 2 on a new venture and have so many people showing up and saying hi. Really appreciate this, including you, Tasha Salinas.
Hi, Tasha. Tasha's going to join us on the show.
Really? Well, that's an invitation to
Tasha's
everybody.
Tasha's got a really interesting story. So. Or stories.
The people of the new reality, come and join us on screen here. 6:11 a.m. in Middle Tennessee.
Oh, Paula Hawk, thank you.
Hi, Paula. We definitely have a new reality on the way. There you go.
That's wonderful.
And Amanda, I was labelled as a bit odd and would probably make a lovely housewife.
Oh.
It was meant to be a compliment from my father. Anyone else have that?
Bless your father.
I wonder. That's
Hi,
brilliant,
Amanda.
isn't it? Yes. The new reality, similar to you, as a child thinking, this isn't, I'm not sure, this isn't this doesn't feel quite right. There might be more to life than I'm being told. So as I think referred to it yesterday, went off on a journey to try and find out what that might be. If you're not getting answers at home or at school, you tend to go off piste, don't you? Because they are the main conduits of information to you as a child, home and school. And then there's your friends as well who lead you astray. And then there are strangers who can also lead you astray, who you find in the small ads, in books, as we were saying yesterday, back in the day. No, that's another program altogether. the dating app.
Oh my god!
Yes, the new reality dating.
Yeah,
that's another one for your list there, Karen and Will.
Yes,
new
absolutely.
Reality dating, new reality partners. But had to go look for the information that would help me realize that I wasn't a weirdo. Although it does become a bit of a badge of honor, and you can become quite, if you own it, it can become quite comfortable, can't it, to be that you kind of form your personality like that, as not being one of the regular kids or whatever, and then you can kind of trade on it within your social group or society as being slightly different. And that's a mixed blessing in a way, isn't it? That's a good thing, because I think it can help you to grow, to see that you have an ill-fitting skin, if you like, in the way that you might have referred to it. But then if you become weird as a kind of self-caricature, self-parody, that might not be so helpful necessarily.
I think that separates us, doesn't it? It's almost like a device to keep people away.
Yes,
that's when it's a bit dangerous, I think.
Yes, and then after the teenage years, the early 20s, where you're continuing to form your personality, wasn't it great to have ideas like 2012 and the new age? And
I wasn't in my 20s when 2012 happened.
No, was I way sorry, I meant that in a more sort of chronological spread, rather than trying to convey that I'm still only 30 or something like that. But it was good to hear of the age of Aquarius. It was good to hear of.
When did you first hear about it? I mean, obviously not on the song by the Fifth Dimension.
That was when I first heard about it. But then
astrologically, that's not true.
We've debunked that tune, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
And it doesn't stack up.
No.
On that might be quite a nice little feature to reintroduce into your astrology show.
Actually,
looking for signs, breaking down a song. Is it true to?
Is it astrologically true?
Is it astrologically correct? Anyway,
when the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, that's just made up.
Yes, yeah. And what I'm continuing to answer your question here about being a weirdo and relating that to signs of a new reality. So those early signs were great to hear that there might be. We might be going into the age of Aquarius, from Pisces into Aquarius as an age, from the dark age into an age of light. The idea that there are light workers and healers, all of that became apparent to me through my own investigation, scrabbling around in the dark. That's all started to intensify. So I think your question, the answer to your question is yes. Where once we felt weird and in the dark, there were suddenly some torches in the distance, weren't there? And we made our way towards those beacons and those signals and those torches in the distance. And now it's quite normal. Many of those things that seem like such a relief and such a revelation to us 10 or 20 or 30 years ago are now very normal things.
Yeah.
And so maybe what's happened is where parents might have thought to themselves, oh, I think I've got an indigo child. I'll buy the book to help them make their way in life and endeavor to make them a bit more normal. Maybe what's happening now is that the parents are thinking, oh, thank God my kid's weird. Yeah. And it's not an embarrassment anymore. It's, this is like, thank heavens my child is an individual.
Yes.
And I'm going to help nurture their particular character and personality traits and quirks. I'm not going to try and normalize them. I'm going to support them and help them give birth to their true selves. Yeah. And maybe that's another sign of a new reality.
Absolutely. And isn't that actually what's giving the parents permission to be themselves too?
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
Giving us all permission to be ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you, Terence, for that. Terence is here as well.
Hey,
good luck with the new venture superstars. You look and sound brilliant. Well, that's very kind.
Thank you, very kind. That's very kind.
He knows a thing or two about
showbiz,
video and showbiz, as does Terence there. Tony having a realization as well. We're helping people this morning. He'd probably make a lovely housewife as well. I don't know if your father told you that, or if that's is that a self-diagnosis, Terence? Tony, not Terence. Terence would also make a lovely housewife, no question about that. Look at that. You're very good at looking into the camera, by the way. Makes you feel like she's talking directly to you.
Do you know what?
Which is what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, like when I work with clients, I mean, I love working directly with people. And of course, we're now living in this age where, we're working directly with people, and yet we're a million miles away from each other, or not a million. The temptation to look in this direction, which is actually where Mr. M is sat, it's really, really hard, because like when I'm having a conversation,
told yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah,
if you look at me now, this is what we look at me in real life.
Yeah.
You see, that's what we want to do, isn't it? But that's what we're meant to do, is look at the screen like that.
So thank you for that feedback. That's really reassuring.
Cheers
it's really hard not focus.
Funny thing is, Tony, she was actually talking to you.
I was.
It was a message for you. I'm 63 years old, says Deb, and I definitely see my children, and especially my grandchildren, are much more aware than our generation. I think. Was that always the case, or is there a particular kind of different now? Because you would expect that in a way, wouldn't you, in sort of human evolution terms? Has that quickened? Is there an intensity? Is there a special difference at the moment, Deb, on that? My oldest granddaughter is highly empathic. How lovely.
Do you know what? This might be, with the permission of everyone else, I think this might be where we carry on our conversation next, in our next episode on Thursday, because we're running out of time.
Yes, we really are.
And before we do go, and I'm not trying to sort of like, I know you're the producer here, aren't you?
Allegedly.
I'm looking at you.
Allegedly, yes.
So I take my cues from you. But one thing that I really want to acknowledge here is, I think our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they probably were also empathic and deeply, deeply connected in different ways. And yet I think we're all living in the aftermath of the world wars and what happened, like, I think people were probably quite rigid with fear and grief that couldn't be expressed. I think what has happened in the past historically has created such, I don't think people were able to fully unleash their emotions, didn't know what to do with them. And so I think that's why it's taken several generations for us to suddenly unburden ourselves.
Yes, if you're a fourth turning sort of person, the cycles within cycles mean that young children might have things in common with their great grandparents, mightn't they? And those sort of skills that come and go within the scheme of things and the cycles of history. So that's a really good point as well. The new children are being born. The new children being born are in this new reality. That's great, and that's got to be a program in its own right, I think, hasn't it?
So we've got some great topics there.
Yeah, thank you.
Please
very
do
much.
keep them coming.
Yeah, okay. Let's make sure we include everyone before we go today. In about 90 seconds from now.
Oh my goodness,
that's extraordinary. Douglas says yes, Tony, and we'll all do a show on people pleasing, because that's a really important topic. Isn't it?
I can think
I'm a people pleaser. Sadly, people aren't always pleased. He says there, and. No, don't freak me out. No, she was really looking directly at you. Kids,
I'm still looking at you.
Kids everywhere doing their utmost to be their new selves these days. Mary becomes Max and Max becomes... That's another program idea for us there. And yes, my parents were the silent generation. That's interesting. So many ideas for us to explore here. Sorry, I cut you off. You wanted to add something before we go. Do
you know what? I can't even remember, so it's all good.
Okay, all right. And Deb definitely feels the difference in one of the granddaughters here. And maybe that's something we can do on one of our shows, just in the way that your mum, going back to your mum there,
bless her.
So, who was so delighted when she found the indigo, how to raise your indigo child book, and came to you and said, I think I know what's wrong with you. Which is a help, isn't it?
She might not remember it that way.
We can understand. We can understand the love in that. But
definitely.
Maybe that's another show as well. Is how to nurture and support your grandchildren who may have these empathic gifts and such like. So as we said earlier on, we won't be live tomorrow. But we will be back on Thursday.
And there is a show
tomorrow.
Show.
There will be a show. There will be a show, but we won't be here to do it. So thank you very much for being here. We'll see you again live on Thursday. Enjoy our show tomorrow and have a great day. Please do. Take care and bye.